Susan, you had a stroke at age 49. Tell us what it was like on the morning that you had your stroke.
It was 14 years ago this week. I woke up on a Sunday morning and I had had knee surgery. So I was kind of in bed, deciding whether or not to go to church, and I decided to finally go to church. So I limped to the bathroom and I leaned down to pick something up, and suddenly I had a stroke, not a stroke, I had a dizzy spell, unlike one I've ever had. I just was so dizzy, so I stumbled back to bed and I laid there trying to figure out what's going on, and my husband came in and said, "You're going to go to church?" And I answered him, but my speech was very garbled and unintelligible. He couldn't understand me, and I couldn't understand why he couldn't understand me. And so he called the paramedics, and the paramedic, I thought that was stupid because I thought, what for? I'm dizzy. But I didn't realize what happened to me, so I tried to stand up to go because the stretcher couldn't come in my bedroom because the turn was too sharp. So I tried to stand up and I fell to the floor. My whole right side didn't work and I didn't know what was going on and I couldn't talk.
Susan, what was life like before you had your stroke?
Well, like I said, you said I was just 49 years old. I had 4 children, ages 23 to 17. They're growing children, but they're still very much part of my life, and I did a lot with them, and I did a lot of things. I just graduated with my master's degree in educational leadership and policy and administration, and I received the position as a elementary principal. So I've been working about 2 years in this school, and was very involved in the district. I did a lot of presentations district-wide, and I was used to being in charge of everything, and so that in a matter of minutes everything changed.
What a shock that must have been.
It was unreal, surreal. I just I didn't comprehend then the changes that were taking place in my life, but it was just to be so active and so articulate and so involved, and my speech was such a part of my living, and have my speech gone was really a shock.
What was it like when you started rehabilitation in the hospital?
Well, I'd had an ischemic stroke, so the blood clot had clogged the artery that took oxygen to my brain, and that caused me to paralyze my whole right side. So I couldn't, my speech was gone. I could still understand everything, but I didn't have the muscles to form the words. I couldn't speak. And I didn't have, I was incontinent, which is very difficult for me. Several things just, it was difficult. But as I started rehabilitation there in the hospital, the first day they were wonderful therapists. They got me up and holding on to it with the belt and everything, they had me walking down the hall. I wasn't walking, but I was walking with help. And I was encouraged. But then the therapist went home for Thanksgiving break because it was Thanksgiving, so I was left in the care of students who tried to help me, some of them. And when a person can't speak, and when they're incontinent, and when they're very overweight, as I was, people tend to treat you like a vegetable, like you don't know anything, and it's very undignified, very demeaning. Physical therapy was such a new experience for me. I'd seen my daughter the year before her stroke, but I'd never been experienced myself. I remember it was so exhausting to move a little metal peg from the table and put it inside of a slot. It was a huge thing for me to do that. I remember my family cheering and celebrating the first day that my finger went up and down. I could move it. I was so excited about that. There were little things that were very little signs of progress, but there were signs of progress.
What happened after you left the rehabilitation hospital?
Well, it was the beginning of a long journey, but I had outpatient therapy for a couple months. So I went to the hospital a couple times a week and had some therapy, and that helped. But at 3 months, I went to see my neurologist, and they told me that that was as good as I was going to get. At that time, I was barely walking with a cane and a walker. My speech was still, you couldn't understand me, and it was halted and slow, and it was just, I was trying, but it still wasn't there. And I couldn't use my arm to put my makeup or do my hair, and so I thought, to hell with you. I thought, you just sit back and watch. I'm going to get better. There's no way I'm going to stay handicapped like that the rest of my life. And so it made me more determined. But my worry is, many people might hear neurologists or doctors or anybody tell them this is as good as it's going to get and think, give up. This is as good as it's going to get. I'm here to tell you, don't give up. Have hope. Keep going. And I worked so hard, and it took years and years and years, not months or days, but years. But it get better in increments, slowly get better.
So after a few months, your insurance would no longer pay for your therapy. What did you do to continue to improve?
Well, after the doctor told me that was as good as I could get, and I decided I was going to get better, and then the insurance wouldn't pay, I decided I'd have to do things on my own. So I did all the exercises they taught me in rehab, I did them at home. I had like rubber bands of every color to exercise my arm, my leg. I did that daily. And after I went back to school, I went to my speech therapist and I said, Christy, help me, because I got to learn to talk again. And so I sat down with the children and I learned to...
the children at school, correct?
School,
the
yes.
Students.
Students, and it was kind of... I learned a great empathy for children with disabilities. I'd always had sympathy, been, aware of them, but I learned an empathy. I really related to what they were going through. I think it helped them so much to see me struggling with the diphthong, with a blend that I couldn't say, that they couldn't say. And
so you did speech therapy with the children who were getting speech therapy?
With the children. That was the only way I could think of to do. But Christy also gave me, my speech therapist, she gave me some whistles and some party blowers and some straws and different things, because as I said, I could think the words, I just couldn't say them. The muscles were not there. So I practiced my speech. She gave me a book full of diphthongs and sounds and blends, and I had to say the words and pages of words and sounds over and over and over.
It's very difficult work that you did, this rehabilitation after stroke. How did you motivate yourself to do this every day?
Well, it was exhausting. I had fatigue a lot. I'd have to take naps during the day often. I had a very understanding faculty and secretaries, but I motivated myself by the fact that I was needed, and that I just kept telling myself that one day I was going to wake up and this was going to all be over. It never happened that way, but I kept thinking that, and I never gave up hope that I was going to get better, and I did, but very slowly. And that's why I want to tell people that it happens slowly. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't go to bed and wake up better. But it does you do get better. And everybody has different effects from a stroke. Everybody's different.
How important is it to have support of friends and family and colleagues?
I can tell you that not being able to speak and move and do things as you did is a very lonely world. Having those people that support you and love you unconditionally, it's very important to have people you trust around you so you can be yourself. And there are times when you're depressed, you cry, it's hard. And to have somebody whose shoulder you can lean on is invaluable.
It's now been 14 years since you had your stroke. Are you still making improvements?
I am. I still have some problems, like this arm that floats without, I have to knock it down. I can't control that, but last spring I was getting ready for a trip to Jordan and Israel, and my husband had pointed out to me, we hike a lot, almost every day, and I live in St. George, and we hike up in the Red Hills, and he pointed out that I didn't step with my right foot on the heel first, and because of that I tripped a lot. And so I was concentrating on stepping on my heel first when I took a step. I've been doing this for months, and I created a problem with my IT band in my leg from the new movement. So I went to physical therapy to help with my IT band. And while I was there, the therapist said, would you like some help with your gait? I said, my gait? I don't watch myself walk, so I didn't know that I still walked with my leg swinging out. And that's normal for a stroke patient. But she showed me how to hold my muscles differently, how to hold my leg differently, and now I've been practicing what she showed me. So since May, I've made a huge improvement in the way I walk. So I know there are still things that I can improve on. Maybe someday I'll get this arm to stay down.
That's an important message, because a lot of times people are told, like as you were, that there won't be any improvement after the first year.
Well, there is. I think my life, I will continue to improve throughout my life. I think I have found life to be wonderful. It will never be the same as it was before the stroke. I will never be the same. My balance isn't the same, I don't walk the same, my hand isn't the same, but I have accommodated to make it very wonderful. And I don't feel like I'm slighted on anything. In fact, I feel that I have gained an appreciation for life itself and for my brain. The brain is an incredible, incredible thing. I mean, circuits in my brain died, cells died, and I couldn't do things. But my brain learned how to do things all over. It resorted itself with new cells so that they could learn to walk and to talk and to do my hair. And so I've learned to appreciate my body, people around me, people with disabilities, like I never had before. So that's been a blessing. And life is really good. It's beautiful.